Recently, we've been seeing some of the best grapplers at the highest levels of competition being finished with the straight ankle lock. This is surprising because for so long, the heel hook has been the king of leg locks and no-gi jiu-jitsu. In this video, we're going to look into some of the technical details of their modern straight ankle lock, and this includes some match analysis. We're also going to explore some of the reasons why the meta has shifted back to straight ankle locks. One of the reasons even extends beyond jiu-jitsu into other sports, games, and if you don't already know me, my name's Sean. I'm a BJJ black belt and a founder of the BJJ education app, Jiu-Jitsu, which if you're interested in checking out, I put a link in the description with some free instructional content. A key reason for the return of the ankle lock to the meta is the dilemma of the heel hook ankle lock from the outside Ashi position. This presents a problem. They can turn their heel to prevent the heel hook, which presents an opportunity to attack the ankle lock. Or they can turn their heel out to defend the ankle lock, which presents an opportunity to attack the heel hook.
Again, they're defending the heel hook, so I need to have some kind of option from here. From here, coming here, and then trying to dig back on a heel from here, this is what's going to get my back taken. So what I need to do is I need to force them to respect this ankle lock grip. From here, they're crowding. I control the knee. From here, I hip escape out slightly, and I pop that heel just slightly into my ribs. All I want it to do is just pop slightly in. Once I feel that that heel slightly in front of my ribs from here, now from here, I put the weight down on the foot, but I lift my hips slightly. But as I lift my hips, my foot can create a foot post if I can. That can help me with the lift there. Then my other foot is just crossed over the toes. What's very important here is that I pinch my knees together at the knee. My other hand is controlling behind the calf. I pinch my shoulder blades back and I look over my bottom shoulder there. And I can get a finish, but what's most likely going to happen here is they're going to start turning their knee inward. Now, when they start turning their knee inward, I can work my way back to the elbow. And now from here, we can start to get a good bite on the heel hook. What I'm looking for on a heel hook here is, again, where the heel exposure is when the knee's inside this imaginary line here. The heel's hidden when the knee's outside of that line. When the knee's inside that line, the heel's exposed.
We recently saw an example of this modern style ankle lock in competition in a super fight between Nicky Ryan and JT Torres. Later in this video, we'll get into some of the technical refinements of this new modern style ankle lock and how it exploits this heel turn to defend the heel hook. But this dilemma it creates alone can explain much of what's happening here. As you probably know, a dilemma is when you present for your opponent two bad options and you're okay with either choice they make. One of the reasons why old meta and old techniques return is often related to these dilemmas, but over a longer time scale. Certain skills and attributes are developed over time, in this case, heel hook attacks and defenses. And on the other side of the dilemma, in this case, ankle locks are often underdeveloped and neglected. You can kind of think of this like when you go out and buy no-show ankle locks in bulk, only to then suddenly discover that the latest fashion meta is now longer crew socks. By the way, I'm curious, I'm an aging millennial and I'm still on team ankle socks. Should I switch? I really want to know where you stand on this important issue. Please let me know in the comments. Anyway, with that all being said, surprise and lack of respect alone for the basic ankle lock can help explain some of its recent success. Grapplers have invested so much time defensively and offensively developing heel hooks that they can be caught off guard from ankle lock attacks. That's not enough though. Often when an old technique returns, such as the ankle lock, there are new innovations and insights as well.
Upgrades.
Before we get into some of the recent innovations of the ankle lock, I wanted to briefly go over some of the history of the heel hook and ankle lock in grappling, as this will help explain some of the reasons why it's now back in style. As mentioned earlier, ankle locks used to be more popular. A large part of this is due to rule sets. In gi jiu-jitsu, you can't do heel hooks at all, and for a long time, this is the most popular rule set. And also due to culture and other factors, with the commonly held belief that you're sacrificing position by going for these attacks. And by the way, we're focusing on the no-gi ankle lock for this video. If you happen to be interested in the evolution of the ankle lock in gi jiu-jitsu, Alec Balding has a great video on this topic, which I linked down below in the description. Typically, the way the original old school ankle lock was taught and applied is that it would work by applying a sharp pressure with the bony part of your wrist to the back of their Achilles, and by trapping the foot and extending the foot and applying pressure to stretch the foot beyond its normal range of motion. This worked particularly well for taller opponents who could create distance and maintain that distance to extend the foot even more.
It's very important to get this part and this part of the hand and to make it very tight. So I make basically one muscle with my hand and my back. And I want to go put my elbow inside to connect with my ribs and go my shoulder and then I arch my back. Basically, I'm getting a fish.
So as he mentioned, the traditional ankle lock, the breaking mechanic is you extend the foot as you arch backwards. You can kind of see it right here, this motion. It's called plantar flexion. So, as you arch back, you're bringing it to plantar flexion and just extending the foot past its normal range of motion here. There's no lateral movement with the old school ankle lock. You're just overextending the foot and the ankle. So it's just straight up and down, again, not sideways. So that lateral movement has another fancy name. It's called inversion or aversion. Inversions, when you roll the ankle outwards like this. And this is typically, when people roll their ankles, it's typically in this direction. And the opposite of that is, aversion, where the ankle rolls inwards like that. So the traditional ankle lock that brings everything into plantar flexion, that, as I understand it, damages the front of the ankle, kind of like this joint capsule here. But there also are variations that are more like traditional ankle locks that add a little bit of a twist to it. And you notice there's less lateral range of motion in the ankle. And this is traditionally how people sprain their ankles very often, or at least when they roll it. And it's on the side here in these ligaments. And there's just less range of motion and the ankle is a little bit more vulnerable on the side there. But what's interesting about the new style ankle lock, which we'll get into later in this video, is that it often attacks the other side of the ankle here by forcing aversion. While you didn't see a huge amount of finishes with this old school classic straight ankle lock, the attacking position provided a great deal of control. You'd even have competitors using this basic straight ankle lock position, not even to finish opponents, but to take advantage of this control to sweep opponents, win scrambles, and get on top. The most famous example of someone doing this is Marcelo Garcia, who often used this position for sweeps and control in what he referred to as single leg X. With some notable exceptions, heel hooks at this time were not fully understood and often applied with little control. At the time, many viewed it as a dynamic attack where you would often compromise position and could be even dangerous to use in training. Like, I remember hearing things back then, by the time you feel the heel hook in your knee, it's already too late. Your knee's completely destroyed. Of course, this all changed with the rise of the Danaher Death Squad, and essentially overnight becoming one of the most common submissions in all of no-gi grappling. At the highest levels of competition, they utilized a system of control when attacking the heel hook, with a very deep understanding of breaking mechanics for the heel hook, combined with aggressive grip fighting and leg lock entries. I remember training with Eddie Cummings around this time when he was a purple belt and I was a brown belt. And then in the span of like 6 months, I went from having competitive rolls with him to him tapping me out more often and more quickly than anyone I've rolled with in my entire life. All with heel hooks and other leg locks. Like, it was crazy. I've never seen a transformation like that so quickly in jiu-jitsu. Another big reason for the rise of the heel hook is how lethal of a submission it can be, putting damage directly into the knee joint, as opposed to the classic ankle lock, which often stretches the foot and puts painful pressure on the Achilles. With that all being said, if the heel hook is so much more powerful, what else makes the ankle lock great again? Often when old meta and techniques return, they're often not exactly the same as they were before, and I think this is the case with ankle locks as well. In recent years, we've seen the rise of the Aoki Lock and innovations found there about different ways to create pressure on the foot. There are some similarities between finishing the Aoki Lock and this new style of finishing the ankle lock. While there's some similarities here, there's also some important differences with the straight ankle lock, which we'll get into in a moment. One of the main people responsible for many of the recent innovations in the ankle lock is Mateusz Szczeciński, in what he refers to as the shotgun ankle lock. And over the last couple of years, he's finished numerous opponents with it at the highest levels of competition. He also trained with the B team not too long ago, and he really turned some heads with the straight ankle lock technique. It's also safe to assume he at least helped influence or inspire Mikey Ryan to use this style of ankle lock himself. So we're just going to go over this clip of Mateusz teaching the ankle lock himself. If you want to check out the whole thing, it's on the B team YouTube. I'll make sure there's a link in the description below.
I start on my elbow. I'm in the outside Ashi position right now. So first thing I have to do, I have to correct my grip because I'm aiming for the ankle. So first thing I have to do is to move my hips. Position of my hips will allow me to correct my grip. So I can either put this foot here or stay on the mat and move my hips away, okay? I need to be at the very end of his ankle, right here. This is like, look at our foot. This is sweet spot for my ankle lock, okay?
So just like the traditional ankle lock, you want the grip at the end of the foot, like by the heel, kind of on the Achilles. So there's no difference there. Also, he mentioned using your feet on the hips to kind of find that range, to get that grip on the end of the heel. This still isn't really different from the traditional ankle lock.
I move my hips away. I want to be as deep as I can with my hands, so I'm not using my sharp wrist bone to finish, I want to be as deep as I can. This allows me to like adjust this grip in a good spot, okay?
So this is the first major difference. Now we're no longer putting the sharp bony part of a wrist or a radial bone on the Achilles. Rather, you're shooting your whole arm through to allow you to be even tighter, but also to allow you to control the range a little bit as well.
So I'm here. I need, the perfect position would be when his heel would be on my ribs. So something like this, just slightly to the side. This is not Aoki Lock, so I don't want to open my chest because it makes very easy for him to go to this way when I try to finish. Yeah, so I just want this foot slightly to the side because I believe ankle don't have a lot of motion to this side, but don't turn it into Aoki Lock, okay?
So I'm new to this ankle lock and I'm finding the trickiest part to be to find this positioning here. You know, he mentioned you want the ankle on the rib. You don't want it outside on the chest. Otherwise, then the heel can escape and then it becomes an Aoki lock or they can spin out. So you really want to find a spot kind of on the upper rib here. It kind of depends, but then you want to have the entire foot kind of up in the armpit, as you can see like right there. Also, you mentioned what we talked about earlier about how the ankle has limited mobility laterally or sideways. So that's kind of the motion we want to attack with this submission rather than the plantar flexion or full extension.
We will be here, and I want to use my shotgun grip. I call it shotgun, but it's something like Kimura, okay? With this grip, I can use full potential of my upper body, because right now I feel like I'm only using right side of my body. Right here, I can use both shoulders, involve them, and put a lot of pressure for the ankle. Apart of that, sometimes it's hard to get a perfect grip in a real fight situation. So when you are like, you miss inches to get a perfect spot, I can use this grip to extend his leg, you know, to correct it. So I can use something like this to put pressure on his shin.
So this is the shotgun grip that Mateusz is famous for, that he uses for these ankle locks. And as he mentioned, it allows you to recruit both sides of your upper body to finish the ankle lock. Another important detail about the shotgun grip is that he mentioned it's another tool he can use to find that range. Because like we talked about earlier, and as he mentioned, it's really tricky in a matter of inches to find the proper positioning on the ribs. Another thing I really like about this shot, you can really see how he's hunched over the ankle as he has that grip. You know, he's not opening his chest or fully extending his back like he talked about earlier.
So I start with a shallow grip, I move my hips away, I'm in a perfect spot. I want to be with his heel on my ribs. I adjust the grip, and then to finish, I need to use my lower body. So I have to come back with my hips, I go on my shoulder, and right now I cross my feet because it makes it really hard for him to fight with this leg. If I have just one leg, it's much easier to fight. So I try to cross them, and I'm putting a lot of pressure. It's hard to see because he will tap really soon. So I need my upper body grip and something, something like this, just to put pressure with my hips, okay? So this is hip position, and I need to have a good grip with my upper body here. I come back, and this is over, okay?
So what I thought was interesting about this, he's using his foot on their hip to be able to extend his hips, as opposed to just arching the back straight backwards like the traditional ankle lock. And like the traditional ankle lock, he's using his feet to kind of find and maintain some range. But unlike the traditional ankle lock, he doesn't need as much distance to finish it because it's not relying on extending the foot straight backwards. So what really separates this ankle lock from the traditional ankle lock is that it's not relying on extending the foot out with plantar flexion or even laterally with inversion of the ankle. It's actually going sideways in the other direction, called aversion, like we talked about earlier. He's bringing the toes away from the body. You can kind of see it real quick.
I come back.
He comes back and the toes go down towards the mat. So it's a sideways braking pressure, but it's different from the traditional ankle lock. So the braking mechanic again is inside right here to aversion. You can see how the ankle rolls laterally that way. So I have a match here from Polaris 24 with Mateusz. It's not a good angle of any ankle lock finishing mechanics or anything, but I think it's still worth watching. You'll see why in a moment.
Legs here.
Possible back take attempt here from Mateusz, but I mean, one thing we know about Jed is he is
Got the submission. Oh my God.
Wow, I didn't even see that happen.
So there's not a good angle, like even with replays or anything of the finish, but I wanted to point out his opponent is grabbing his foot like immediately in pain. This is something you would never see with a traditional ankle lock. You know, usually you'd see people's foot being extended backwards, being in a lot of pain, but this finish is almost like instantaneous.
Let's have a look. Goes in. I think he's going for the.
I mean, there's such a.
I think it might either be an steamer lock or.
And I
think
just
it
heard
might be a steamer.
And it was a straight foot lock or a twisting foot lock. We literally couldn't see.
It was straight foot lock, yeah.
So this heel on rib placement that Mateusz uses has another big advantage. It actually blocks one of the most common ankle lock escapes you'll see.
I put the foot on his hip. I move my hips away. I adjust the grip. Remember to have this heel on the ribs because it's really hard to kick this leg through. If he would put, later in the training you will see, but if he would try to stand up right here, it will be really hard for him because he's putting pressure on my body, okay? So it will be really easy to finish even from here. The main problem with ankle locks is when they can put their legs there. I'm on the calf, it won't be easy to finish, okay?
Another match, Mateusz, this time from Polaris 17. This is a great match. He really uses all the things he just explained.
The person only has to turn their hips towards the legs, and you actually end up bailing out of a potentially dominant position in order the neck not get stuck in a deeper leg entanglement.
Yeah, Mateusz is now on that ankle again. Yeah, he's really
strong.
bridging in. Doesn't look like he can quite
Ellis is having to defend hard though.
Yeah.
Yes, he is. And it's
Yeah.
and I thought for a second he was going to tap, and
gonna
there's
be-
the
yeah.
tap. It's a verbal submission. Mateusz Szczeciński scores that straight foot lock.
You notice how the heel's off the mat there, and his opponent goes for like a counter heel hook of his own, inverting through. No foot on the hip yet, no foot on the hip. Another inversion. Now, boom, right away. He gets the foot on the hip and he extends and gets the finish there. One more time, I just want to focus in on how Mateusz finishes him right here when he gets that foot on the hip, just like he showed. Roll through. Boom, foot on the hip, hips extend. And you can see the pain in his opponent's face. He gets the tap. Awesome match. There are many others as well who've had an impact on these recent developments of the ankle lock. One big one being Jason Rao. He's been a big advocate and driver of the return to this regular outside Ashi position, including the straight ankle lock.
So basically, if I want to heel hook him, I want his knee internally rotated, which means his knee is facing inside. That's a good angle for me to expose the heel and heel hook him. If I want to ankle lock him, I want his leg externally rotated. So when I say the person on top is hiding their heel, he's externally rotating his knee. Now it's hard to heel hook him. So we did the heist, we followed him, that could definitely work. But ideally, his leg is in a good position for an ankle lock right now. So as opposed to just trying to heel hook him, I could use the ankle lock to set up my heel hook and vice versa. So I have my Achilles grip, he's turning his knee out. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to push on his knee with my hand, and I want to just like slide my wrist. So I'm like sliding from up here to all the way down here when I do the ankle lock. Because when I ankle lock him, I'm trying to plantar flex his foot. That's what's going to actually break the foot. Versus the heel hook, I'm trying to dorsiflex his foot. So if you guys think of it in terms of that, when his foot is pointed and plantar flexed, it's hard to heel hook him, but it's easy to ankle lock him. And then vice versa. If he flexes his foot and puts like the boot on like you're taught to do, it's much easier for me to heel hook him.
If you're interested in learning more about this, Jason has some great content on his Patreon, which I've linked down below in the description. This concept of the meta shifting back and forth is often referred to as meta cycles, and it can be seen in countless other sports and games. For example, the shifting between big man and small ball styles in basketball, different chest openings falling into and then back out of favor, and gaming, which for many reasons I feel has some of the most rapid meta shifts compared to anything else. A meta cycle is what I believe we're seeing here in jiu-jitsu between ankle locks and heel hooks. As we're seeing the standard outside Ashi being used again with these straight ankle lock attacks, we're also seeing a return of the outside heel hook. This was one of the more popular heel hook variations during the early Danaher Death Squad period we talked about earlier, before inside and backside heel hooks became all the rage. So at this point, you're probably asking yourself, what's the point of all this? Well, in studying jiu-jitsu, developing your game, and watching instructionals, you shouldn't just discard what is old and not in the current meta. For example, tripod passing has been popular in the meta, but it isn't new new. You can find examples of people doing it in competition and teaching it decades ago. One of the reasons for the return of tripod passing is likely due to the rules in ADCC in regards to the turtle position and the way that the tripod passing pins the shoulders and makes it very difficult to turtle when they pass. But also competitors are becoming really efficient at defending certain things that may leave opportunities for tripod passing. For example, body lock passing requires low underhooks typically. Meanwhile, tripod passing usually involves high underhooks under the armpits. Are there any other examples of meta cycles in jiu-jitsu you can think of, or any old techniques you think should make a return? I'm super curious about this sort of thing, and I'm sure others are as well. If you have any ideas, please leave a comment below. You often can find solutions to new problems, new techniques, and new rule sets in old instructionals and by studying old matches. Sometimes to be effective, they work straight as they were, and other times they require new innovations and insights learned from other areas. You should consider this concept when developing your own game and when studying jiu-jitsu in general, because the latest, greatest meta might just be some long disregarded technique just waiting to be rediscovered. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.